Okay. You guys ready? The doors are closing. Looks like we're getting ready to start. Everybody hear me okay? All right, good morning. Okay, welcome to SEO, SEM, the trends and the latest from Google. I'm sure you've all heard of Google. They kind of own the real estate these days. So just want to introduce myself. Tim Rowling here with American Eagle, been here for 10 years. A lot of what I do is work with the business side of things. Today I'm going to talk to you about how SEO relates to your business. And Courtney's the powerhouse on the SEO team. She directs our whole crew here. And she's going to handle the director in those roles. So go ahead, Courtney.
Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney. I'm the SEO SEM director. I've been with American Eagle for about 3 years and in the digital marketing SEO space for 10 now. So I've seen a lot of changes over the years, and today we want to focus on what's new. I see a lot of familiar faces, so we're trying not to tell you the same things, the basics. So we're going to focus on some of the updates and latest things that are happening.
Yeah, so to get started today, we're really going to talk about trends and insights, really what we've seen in the last year, what other companies are doing, what agencies are doing, really where things are going with the industry because it changes so often. And then we're going to end up talking about the latest things from Google. As you know, Google's always changing. There's a lot coming down the pipeline. We're not going to be able to cover all that today. We're just going to take it at a high level. So understand that. If you need something a little bit deeper, by all means, contact one of us later, and we're happy to set up a meeting with you and discuss that in detail. And anytime you have questions, we'll have time for that at the end. So there's a lot to cover, and we're going to kind of take it slow and then ramp up from there as we go on. So just by show of hands, everybody in this room, are you management? Are we influencers, marketers? If we're management, raise your hand. Okay, marketers? Good, okay, good. All right, and how about developers? Do we have any graphics people, developers, the people actually doing the work? All right, great, excellent. Good
Any
mix.
SEO specialists?
Yeah, right there. All right, good, all right.
Darn.
So you're in the right room. All right, perfect, okay. All right, so let's get started. Trends and insights, I think this is really where was organic SEO in the last year and how's it come into this year? We see that there's a lot of things that are happening. And one of the things that stands out is mobile search is continuing to increase. 58% of all mobile searches are coming through organic, or through all searches. Just on our organic side alone, 25% of them are there. So as the share of your Facebook and your direct email and anything like that, you still have a very strong amount coming through your organic search. But look at the whole picture. Everything is going towards mobile. And social media, if you think that it's not important, it is. It keeps going up. A lot of traffic is coming from social media to the websites. So they don't always go to your website first. They're going to social media, and then they're going to come to your website from there. Really important. And then we also see that the click-through rates and the retention rates are a lot stronger when they come through those devices. So it's really going to be important that you recognize that social experience. We're going to go through that today, and also your mobile experience for your customers. We're going to talk a lot about that. Don't worry about taking notes. If you want to take little notes, that's great, but we're going to have these available for you later. You don't have to take pictures if you're trying to grab all these. Just pay attention, and we'll send this document to you at the end of the day here, so you're ready. Some important stats to look at, just as a big driver. You've heard content all the time. Content. That's still important, but with the artificial intelligence and machine learning that Google's good at now, you don't have to be so involved with that. You have to make it more readability. Don't be so keyword driven and focused on those keyword terms. Write literally what you're supposed to be having your customers or your audience understand. What's more important is really the structural things. How many backlinks are coming to your website? How much the time on site, that experience is going to be really important. And if they spend a lot of time on your site, are they coming direct from your site through somewhere else? And are they visiting multiple pages? That's what they want to see as far as the metrics. And these are just stats that they've grabbed over the last year, and they see what's ranking sites the best. So as you can see, some of these stronger things are at the top. And again, we can go through in more detail.
Yeah, some of the repeat trends there are user experience. So how long are people spending? How many pages are they visiting? How quickly are they leaving? Google's starting to understand that if you have a great user experience, that people want to stay there, and they're using that in their ranking algorithm.
Yeah, well, it used to be like 2 pages, now it's up to 3. So these are things that you kind of look at is the metrics that you go through. If you need help with these, again, we'll help you walk through that. Metadata is important too. Courtney, tell us what's here, because this has changed a little.
So you always hear about the basics of SEO is the metadata and the structured markup on the website. That not a ton has changed in that space in terms of what title tags and meta descriptions and headings should be. You should always incorporate your target keywords and those key elements. This year, Google tested expanding the meta description to 320 characters. A lot of people rewrote them, and then they changed it back to 160. So stick with 160, but if you updated it, don't go back and change it. But really today, you can click ahead, is the takeaway is that we want to plan ahead. So planning ahead means optimizing that mobile-first user experience and considering any new structured data markup that you can add to your site.
So it's important that you pay attention to these things as they go through, because they will help your sites rank better. So ads and what's new here, what's happened with Google and their different products.
Google changed from AdWords to Google Ads, along with some rebranding of their other products, so just something to note. And then some other players in the space in the advertising side of things is Amazon. Amazon's now the third largest digital seller. Facebook's number 2, it's right up there with Google. But while Amazon's spending $4.6 billion or receiving in digital ad spend, that's still only about 4% of the full digital ad spending share. Another thing to note, Bing is a bigger player in PPC in certain industries. So for banking, for example, Bing sees a little bit more success than Google, or I shouldn't say than Google, but it sees more than in other industries. Reason behind that is that banking audiences tend to skew towards an older demographic. And there's theories that a lot of older demographics will buy a Microsoft computer, use their default internet browser, which is Bing. Some younger demographics or more tech savvy might purchase that Microsoft computer and immediately update the browser to Chrome or Firefox or whatever their preference is, or switch the search engine to Google.
Yeah, so as Google's consolidating a lot of their products, they're trying to compete after with the advertising dollars out there. And how does Amazon kind of play into this? I think that word comes up a lot. And they're becoming a player is what it really comes down to. They're bringing in a lot of the e-commerce sales. And you'll also see that a lot of their click-through and their conversions are coming a lot stronger through the Amazon than versus Google ads. So what we take away from that is that whole experience of Amazon, getting it the next day, making it easy to order, all those great things that we love about it. The other properties are starting to follow the same suit because they see that user behavior working so well for them. And they're obviously competing for those same advertising dollars. Some people don't have much success with Amazon. Others are having moderate success and continuing to grow. So continue to watch that, especially if you're retail and you're selling products online. Something to watch about because they're going to be coming after those ad dollars too. And so what's working? We took a survey. Hannah in marketing did the survey. We took it and presented it to you guys. Where are people really spending their money and what's working? Text ads by Clear, this is really most effective. And then display is really surprisingly not effective. We've seen those trends go down. So from the marketer's side, they're not spending their money in these areas if it's not working. And what we can see is that the conversion rates aren't coming through as much as you see in the text area. Another key area is the shopping. Google Shopping's really taken up a big leg up. And you're going to start seeing some of that too. If you don't know about the Merchant Center and Google Shopping, something to definitely pay attention to because they got low cost per clicks. It's relatively easy to get yourself ranked in there. And it's great for non-branded products. So if you're not a big brand and everybody knows you, Nike, Adidas, or Beretta, that's great because you know your brands. But what if they don't know the products? And that's where Google Shopping can really come into play. And obviously those text ads that go with it. So that's really the thing here. And a lot of people are seeing that the paid search is a big contributor to their whole picture. It's not just organic anymore. Paid search is really becoming a big factor here. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Is this specific to if you're selling products or services? Because we have kind of a weird hybrid for our company. We're mostly service-based. We have a small piece of e-commerce, but
yeah, there's a lot of companies that aren't product-based. They're just service-based. So this is a survey, just so we're all clear, from marketers in general. Where are they spending their money? What do they think is working? It's not necessarily Google's perspective. It's where they think it's working the best. All right, so just understand that that's what that's coming from. So what else is new from Google? Not necessarily new, but the Google Guaranteed program. Maybe you've seen these little badges next to services, locksmith, home improvement companies, home or heating, air conditioning, roofing, anything like that that's got to be certified and licensed and insured. That's where these services are going to start to come on. So they're competing with Angie's List essentially and the home advisors and things like that in this area. So watch for some more of this stuff to start coming out. They're promoting that. And it's basically just a trust symbol. If you go with these people, they're not going to rip you off because that industry has that reputation, unfortunately. Also, not necessarily new, but maybe new to some of you, are ads in the maps. Local businesses, really important to have map identity and where you're located there. Google likes to make money on everything. They're going to start making more money in the maps. Obviously, they're going to sell these ad spots to push your ads up higher in the map listings. That's what it's designed for. So look at those things too. And then the Google Shopping. Of course, we talked about that a little bit before. And what the important things in here too, Courtney? I think there's another
Yeah, so
factor
this
here.
isn't necessarily all new, but Google's pushing more for you to try out these new ad types versus traditional text ads, display ads. So expect to see more different ad types available in different industries. Something else that Google is doing this year is they're creating automated ads. And basically what they're doing is they're using their bots to create an ad to test how well it would work compared to the ads that you would create in the Google Ads platform. A lot of people don't know about it, or they don't know they're doing that, and they find that they're on. So we just added this as a note in here that if you're doing ad management on your own, we'd recommend turning this off.
Yeah, so watch that because it'll automatically turn itself on. You're competing with Google for your own ads if you're running them. So definitely something to watch out if you haven't heard that already. Okay, and then there's smart shopping campaigns. As the intelligence gets together and the machine learning technology, they're going to make it easy for one dashboard to kind of control everything. So you can do your shopping, you can do your YouTube, Gmail ads, your search ads, any ads you put through is one continuous shopping dashboard. So that's what they're trying to do is make it easy for the user, and with this turnkey programs is what they're coming out with. Now, also trends in spending, what we see what people are doing. This is another, where the marketers are putting their money at. And what you see here is 90% of the people or more are putting their money into search ads because they know they work. A lot of people are still doing search and social. Although display's not working, people are still putting their money there, and they'll find out eventually that's not coming through on their conversion. That'll catch up to them. So just different things to look at. Also, social media, Instagram and YouTube. We've seen a huge spike in those platforms. We're going to talk about video later because that's a very important part that's coming up, and how to increase your user experience. And it's a big teller of what Google's looking for as far as relevancy. Are you relevant with today's culture and those users? That's what they're going to look at. Surprisingly, some of the other social medias really haven't grown that much. So just something to keep an eye on of what's working and what's not. Really, that's the whole point of that.
And this is important also for SEO because social referrals are a quality signal to Google. So it's helpful to know which social platforms are emerging as top players.
Yeah, so reviews. We've heard about reviews all the time. There's been back and forth. People solicit reviews. They don't ask for reviews. I'll give you a gift card if you give me a review. Not a good idea. That worked in the beginning, but now those policies are really changing a lot where you're essentially buying someone's review at that point, and that's not going to be looked at positively. So our advice would be to do it the right way, and Courtney's going to give you a couple quick tips on what that looks like.
Yeah, so the important things here is quality and quantity of reviews still really matter. It's used in Google's algorithms and how they rank a site. So be mindful of that. Another thing that's emerging is there's a lot more platforms that help you manage these reviews, respond to the reviews, along with business listings. So the key takeaway is to figure out, do you have a plan moving forward for 2019, either to send an email to customers who purchase your products, asking them to review for your website or for a third-party site, and then do you actively have somebody managing and getting alerts every time a review comes in. If you need any recommendations about a good platform that works well for your business, we have a lot of partners in that space, so we'd be happy to give you a recommendation there.
And there's some really great tools that helps make this easy for you. So it's hard to get reviews and put a whole process together. That's what these tools are made to do. Send automated emails, get an experience gauge on how they enjoy working with your business or your service or your product. Did they like it or not? And that's really going to become more of that user signal that they're looking for. So definitely something to consider if you're not doing reviews. Maybe put a program together and start working at that because it will help you. And your competitors are going to get ahead of you if they're doing it and you're not. That's what's going to end up being the result. All right, so we got about 15 minutes until we go into the next part here. So let's take the last half of this and we're going to get into the good stuff, all right? That's just the basic, easy stuff. Now we're going to dive into some of the bigger things here. And let's talk about Google for a quick second.
So what's new with Google? It's still a Google world. They're still the biggest player in the search engine space. 90% of all internet searches happen on Google products between the search platform, YouTube, and Google Images. And basically, the takeaway there is that they're still the search engine algorithm Bible. So if you're doing right by Google for search algorithms, you're typically doing okay on the other platforms as well. So it's important to stay up to date on what Google's doing with their algorithm.
Yeah, no surprise here, but the takeaway is it hasn't changed. They're continuing to grab more market share and they're adding more products to compete with Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, and these other pieces that are taking away that share. That's what they're going to look for. So we get into the fourth quarter here, what's going to happen into next year too. I think that's really where it's going to come into play. We hear all these things about algorithms. Just a couple of notes here. Courtney, what are the important ones in this list?
Sure, so we noted here some of the top algorithm updates that happened over the past year, and we'll talk about a few of them in more detail. The biggest one probably to point out from the organic SEO side is that In August and September, they rolled out some pretty significant algorithm updates that impacted organic traffic. So if you saw any sort of declines in your organic traffic or your keyword rankings around that time, it's likely related to that algorithm update. We saw across the board in all industries it was impacted, but in the health and medical space tended to be the largest hit there. So if you have any questions about traffic declines, we'd be happy to take a look. And be aware of those and be mindful of when you see declines in your organic traffic if it's possibly related to an algorithm update.
And Medic is more like the repair. That's essentially what they were doing. So they're trying to come back and fix things that weren't really working the right way before. That's focusing on that user experience, page load speed, how fast is your site load, are you on a mobile responsive site, all those things that they're really starting to hone in on. So those will be some of the things that you might have noticed if you, like Courtney said, if your position changed, or if all of a sudden you were in the map listings and the rankings, now you're not, could be an indication that something's not clicking from that last update. And you hear all these algorithm updates all the time, right? It's always algorithm. That's because Google likes to change. But it's not always just the organic search or the map search. They change a lot of products. Google's a product company. So they could be changing a user signal, it could be a communication, a response thing. It could be something in the maps. It could be something on Google+. It's not always with organic. So understand that they're constantly making changes and refinements everywhere. This is just a short list of what some of those might look like. And then we've included a link here that we'll send you that has a lot of the old searches from 20 years old. They're 20 years this month. And that's really cool. Last month, actually, in September. But what the important thing is here, they look at how simple the sites and the keyword search was from the beginning. And then we're going to take a couple example looks of how the screens have changed since then. So if you want to go look at that link sometime on your own, that's kind of interesting to see that. But the important thing is that they're always changing. And you have to understand that they're trying to make things better. And the more you keep up with it, the better you're going to be connected with their algorithm changes. If you don't, you're going to fall further behind, and your competition is going to get in front of you. So we hear about mobile first index. This is a big factor when we talk about the Metacore update. This is going to be very key going forward.
Sure. So one of the algorithm updates that was rolled out this year is the mobile first index. Google's been pushing for mobile first for quite a while now. The search share has switched to primarily mobile traffic across the board. Some industries are higher than others. Basically what this means is when Google evaluates your website, they look at the mobile version of it or the responsive version of it. So if you don't have a responsive website at this time, it's really important to update. And then next is to consider the user experience on that the mobile side. So it's not just about having a mobile site, it's how is your mobile site, and does Google get what it needs from it? Are the users having a good experience on it? Because as we saw earlier, Google's considering user experience factors as in the rankings. So key things with this algorithm update is make sure that you have a quality mobile experience and then fast loading content. People drop off quickly if the sites aren't very fast. This stat here is 15 seconds was the average load time for mobile sites. That doesn't mean that you're not seeing content display right away, but it might be something loading in the background. So be mindful of how fast your mobile sites are loading as well, and let us know if you need help with any improvements that might be feasible to speed up those sites.
Does everyone have responsive site in this room? Does everyone raise your hand? You got a responsive site? Yeah? Almost half? Okay. Really work on that. That's going to be an important factor. And what's going to happen is if they crawl your other site, the mobile site, you're not going to get promotion like you would if you had the responsive site. So you're going to leave a lot on the table there. And then on that responsive site, you really have to make that the best experience because that's the one they're going to grade you on. And they're going to grade that for your user experience, not the desktop site. So where if desktop you had more page views, you had more time on site, more engagement, now that's flipped over to the mobile side. They want to see that you have that same engagement and that same numbers on the mobile side too. So important to understand that going forward. You're going to have to rethink things of how the consumers are looking. Then we see HTTPS, security warnings, Chrome. This is another big one.
Yeah, so Google has also been pushing for this one for years. They said that HTTPS was a ranking factor several years ago. Now they've upped it even more and they display security, not secure warnings on websites that don't run under HTTPS. This is important for user trust. A lot of e-commerce sites or banking sites, people might not want to proceed if they don't see that security symbol or if they're just displaying loudly that it's not secure. And then it's also important for SEO because it is used as a ranking factor as well. Another key item there is that there are tons of free SSL certificates available to update your site. It's not recommended. It's the same as if you would use a free website CMS or something of that nature, we recommend doing a clean job with those SSL migrations and all the steps that are entailed there. So let us know if you need help again there, migrating your website or reviewing if you already migrated it to make sure everything's all switched over from the Google Analytics to the Search Console to the redirect side.
Yeah, so to build on that, it's not just as simple as putting a certificate on your website and sending it in to your SEO company or agency and saying we're good to go. Google check us off. You're going to have all your old pages that are under the old HTTP without the S, right? They're all unsecure. All those have to be forwarded to the new analytics, and you have to make sure you're accompanying that, or your analytics are going to get out. Another important thing is how many times you come to a website where it says, not secure, and you get that gray screen. You can't get on. You have to go through the advanced things. If you don't have your security tag on there, that's going to block all those searches in the future. So very important. You can't really get around it. It's been around for 2 years, and now they're really hammering down on that hard.
Yeah, even if you have an SSL certificate and you might have some hard-coded HTTP links on a page, Google might still display that not secure because they're detecting there's still content there that's running under HTTP.
Do you have a question?
Is it true that Google's going to start suppressing sites in the SERP for not being secure?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, are they going to suppress sites?
Yeah, on one of the first slides, there was a stat, and I believe it said 65% of all websites in top ranking positions are HTTPS sites. I mean, that could go hand in hand with it's probably just a larger site in general, but they have announced that it's a ranking factor, and I don't doubt for a second that they'll demote sites that don't have it.
Okay, so search results page. These are some new things. Maybe you've seen these, maybe you haven't. They're coming up. It's more ways of Google getting into the mix. They want to compete with Travelocity, Expedia, and Hotels.com, and all those different travel sites that are out there, and then some. Like your Monster.com. They're trying to get jobs and all that going too. So expect some more of this as you see services, and Google's just trying to get in there and compete more with everybody else. So something to recognize if you're in those spaces and you're competing, trying to get jobs out. Here's other ways you can do that. And then here's another look at the search page. And this is kind of interesting because what you don't see here is the traditional Google box with just a text search and links below it.
Yeah, so Google's aggregating more content right in the search results versus showing more links for you to click off. So you can do much more within the search results, and they really want to keep people there because Google makes money on the people they bring in, whether it's ads or whatever it be. So here's an example on the right where Google is showing 0 traditional search results, and this was on the storm surge for Hurricane Florence. So they took out all of the traditional links with the blue text, the meta description, and they're only pulling in top news stories, weather content, and there's probably something else there. So just keep in mind that the search results page will continue to be built of that more visual approach with widgets. People call it like a social media page eventually is what the search results will look like. So wait, oh sure, do you have a question?
Yeah, I went to conference where they talked about, they call this the entity concept that Google's going to, where eventually they're not going to display links unless you pay. Do you think, have you heard that? Or?
Yeah.
So the question, just so everyone hears the question, is Google going to start charging for regular links, right? Indexed links, that's essentially what the question's been asked over here.
Yeah, it's very possible. Obviously, we know Google makes money on their links, so they're incorporating more content, like those book a flight. That's actually all sponsored content. So they make money off of things like that. So it's getting to be a place where it might be way more pay to play. They're finding value behind it, and they're kind of like, why pay Career Builder to post your job, and why not pay Google? So there's definitely look for more of that in the future.
Another thing to consider here, sorry, just on this, if you don't see this look in some screens, it's okay because Google's constantly testing. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. But they could be testing this layout in one region of the country and something else in another part of the country. So they do that a lot.
Yeah, this example is actually already gone. It was just displaying for a short period of time, and SEOs caught it right away and asked Google, what are you doing? There's no search results. And they're like, well, maybe it was a glitch. But there was several other instances where they were testing it. But basically what that means with the way they're changing the search results is that you have to incorporate more structured data markup in the website. So to get like those job postings to show up, there's code that you enter on your job postings on your website that Google can then find and pull that in. So based on the industry, there's different sorts of schemas available that can be added to the site. So we're trying to incorporate that way more in development, and then any existing sites, we can always work to add it on.
So we heard about video. You saw a lot of those screens that are putting video in. I got young children and older kids too. They're constantly watching phones and doing video. I think a lot of the stats you see is YouTube is because they're watching TV on their phone. But I think it's coming more into the business sense now, especially with products and a lot of service companies. They're putting how-to videos together. They're putting their own promotional videos together, and a lot of just product. Here's our model M62. Here's our model 346. Different ways when people search so they can get a video to come up and show them just what that model looks like. They don't have to be professionally made like they once were. Everybody thought it was a big $5,000 to $10,000 production. It's perfectly acceptable to use your phone and do something a little bit more in the low budget, and the quality is a lot better than they used to be. And that's kind of what the norm is expecting. So as we see the advantages where you can gain, if you're a service company, make videos about your service. It could be about your people. People want to know who's behind that. It could just be about the customers who you work with. Or it could be a testimonial from a customer you work with. If you're a product company, talk about the products you're doing. Or maybe if you're an assembly company, show how to assemble something, because those how-tos are really good. I know I've done a lot of that myself on YouTube, just how to replace a fan belt in a part that I'd never seen before. And I look up the model, and it's all right there. Yeah, go ahead.
How about other platforms, Vimeo and so forth? So they offer some more functionality stuff. Does it?
To Vimeo, is it?
Vimeo?
Yeah, so the question is, other platforms other than YouTube? Yeah, YouTube's obviously the big one because they're there, but there's a lot of video editing programs and stuff like that where you can put your video on and link back to, which is fine. You can even link them to both. There's not a problem to have them linked to
if Google
both.
recognizes, if you have Vimeo video, it still recognizes its video, so they look at that as a quality user experience metric. But they do love YouTube because they own it and make money on the ads. So I always recommend incorporating some YouTube or even just hosting them there as well. And then keep in mind to mix in promotional versus non-promotional content, so that how-to, product review, which product to buy, all of that's helpful for general search queries. So they might be earlier in the funnel, not ready to make a decision and just doing research, but their visit to your website and your video will still help with your on-page engagement metrics, which then has a trickle-down effect on your more direct converting keywords that somebody might be searching for.
Okay, so are we ready?
Yeah, so is everyone ready for 2019? I know I'm not, but the important things we talked about today are noted here that you want to look forward to in 2019, making sure these are in place for the new year or starting to think about a plan to get them in place. I would say biggest ones here is think about what structured data markup applies to your site. Absolutely have a responsive site. Start looking at that mobile experience side, incorporating an SSL if you don't have one, and then thinking ahead for videos. Any ideas? It's awesome to sit down and just have a brainstorming session there and then start planning out a video calendar in addition to your content calendar.
Yeah, and just to be clear, just because you have a couple of these checkpoints on here doesn't guarantee rankings or you're not going to get better placement. These are recommendations that you should be looking at going there. There's probably a good 20 or 30 other things you're going to have to do beyond that. The important thing is if you don't know, ask. That's the very good questions to ask. If you're not sure, don't take the chance on your website and it could blow all the rankings or knock something out of there. Then you don't know what you did, or you have someone try to fix it. They don't know what you did. So if you're really not sure about that and you have a complex site, you might want to get some advice on that. Another thing is to look at the structure behind your website. A lot of times we run into sites that don't perform well, and because they were just not built to begin with the right way. And those could be inhibitors to your website performance on the search side. So if you've gone through search engine optimization, paid search, and the message here is real simple. If you're not getting results, look deeper, right? Because there's probably something there that's holding it back. It's not just by chance, or there's nothing that Google has personally against your website. They don't know you, but look deeper because there's probably something technically involved that's holding you back there. And the last thing is don't forget about the ads. Although Google makes their money there, where it was really a lot of times a lost leader for companies, now it's becoming a big gain. They're seeing a lot of ROI on that, and the ad costs are a lot lower than they were if you're buying them in the right areas. So by making a better website, you get a higher quality score, which is going to lower your actual cost per click. So all these things are going to relate together. And it's not just as simple as putting a couple things on your page and a video and a social media tag and a button and saying, oh, like us and we're going to be on top because we have user experience. They're a lot more sophisticated than that. They want to see more, when they come back to the website, am I a repeat visitor, am I a new visitor? And am I going to the same pages I always did, or am I going to new content? So these are things when we say get deeper, look down the funnel. because that's going to be a big part of your conversion. As you bring more traffic to the website, how do you keep it from leaving? Because that's what you're looking for, right? You want the customers, you want them buyers. Anything else to add on this?
No, the only thing I have is to make sure to stay up to date on Google's algorithm updates and be in the know of when those happen and how it impacts your business if it does. I can share any resources for ways to keep up to date on those if anyone's interested.
How many of you heard about the automatic ads with Google? Has anybody else heard about that? By show of hands, anybody? Yeah, see, this stuff is they don't talk about it. They just do this, and then they come out with it, and then you're expected to know it. Well, nobody in this room, we know it because we pay attention to it. But I mean, think about that, how many other people are like in that same situation. So there's a lot that's going on at Google that you might not know, and that's why we spend a lot of time on them today, because they're essentially running the market on the web, and we all have to participate there. Before we go on, is there any questions on anything we covered right now? Is there anything you want to go over? Something that came up during the discussion that you weren't clear about? Yeah, go ahead.
What is the best way to articulate to stakeholders the fact that we can't really impact the knowledge panel?
Okay, so the question is, how do you impact the knowledge panel?
How do you explain that you can't control it?
You can't control it is really the whole point. And the question is, how do you, or just?
No, the question is, how do you articulate that to stakeholders? They don't understand
Oh.
SEO or why it's our content. Why can't we change it? But we can. How do we articulate that in a way that makes sense to the stakeholders so that they can better comprehend?
Sure. I would explain that it's an algorithm that decides what to show there, and there's no specific markup or black and white way that you can control what gets posted there. You can only try to write great content and try to get your page authority up. But it takes a lot. There's no quick way to rank there. It's really a holistic approach, and a lot of man labor and work goes into getting rankings there.
Unfortunately, it's going to come down to trial and error in some cases because there is no formula, and Google hasn't released any notification, this is how you do it. They recommend, here's how you can do it, but that's as far as they go with it. So I think to me it's still an experiment that they're still working on.
It just doesn't make sense to them why we can't. So it's like there will be image references where they've been updated on a database, and when you click on it, it loads a different updated image, but then in the knowledge panel, it's still loading.
Oh, you're talking about the knowledge panel. At first I thought you meant the answer boxes, but yeah, that one is another one you can't fully control. You can do all of your best efforts, but at the end of the day, it's up to Google whether or not it uses it.
Okay, second question. Your favorite SEO monitoring tool?
It depends. There's
The
so
question,
many.
just hold on, Courtney, so I can let everybody know. Okay.
Oh, sure.
The question is, what's the second most favorite
Or your
SEO?
favorite.
Or first favorite?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite SEO monitoring tool? What do we like the best?
I can't decide because there's different tools for different applications. So I have favorites for keyword tracking, for crawling a site, for monitoring the health of the site, the crawl budget. I would say ultimately it's Google Search Console because that's sharing a good picture of what's really going on. So how many pages are they indexing? Are there any crawl errors? It's the more technical health gut check. Definitely plenty of other good tools out there for the content marketing side of it or the keyword tracking side of it.
How do you feel about BrightEdge?
That one, they're really great on the content side. So if you're trying to plan content marketing strategies as it relates to SEO, we've had clients that had success with them.
And have you used SiteImprove's SEO functionality that they rolled out?
Yes, so that one is fairly new for them, and it's a really great add-on because SiteImprove itself is a really great tool. So we love that they're bringing that in and having it right in with SiteImprove is an accessibility tool first and foremost.
How many have heard about SiteImprove? Okay, that's a new tool that's come out. Yeah, great
Yeah,
questions.
and
You were really good over here
I
in the
should
front.
be
Yeah.
repeating your question.
Nice job.
Sorry. So
that's-
anyway, SiteImprove is an accessibility tool. It's telling you whether or not your web pages are compliant, and it allows you to kind of manage that whole process. And they recently added in an SEO monitoring tool into it, and it's definitely helpful. They let you see some of the high-level technical items on the site. The one thing to keep in mind, though, is it always takes a human to interpret those results. Because sometimes it'll like flag a false positive there. Like if you have something that's actually fixing the issue in place, the bot can't always detect it. So it's good to get that initial analysis, but then usually it takes somebody to understand, or the web developer, the SEO person, to be able to say, oh, that's really an issue, or that's not really a non-issue, so.
Accessibility is
it's
going to
good, in my
become a
opinion.
big factor, and that's a great thing to bring up. If you haven't heard about it, it's essentially making sure that your website's accessible from all disabilities. So you can't have moving pictures on there too much. You have to have good contrast with colors. There's a whole list of requirements that you need to do to follow that. It's not a policy, it's more of regulations and suggestions on how you do it. But it becomes very important to pay attention to that, and SiteProof is just one tool. But you also bring up a good point of what are you trying to research? Are you trying to research, your keywords, your backlinks? Is it the structure? Those are going to be important to what tools you use, because we haven't found one tool yet
Yeah, we use a whole
that does
collection
everything.
of them.
And you have some tools that are great, but they're way overkill. It's way more than you'll ever need, and some don't do enough. So it's okay to have a mix of tools. Here's a good keyword tool, here's a good structure tool, and maybe here's a good content tool. And those really can help you bring them together from that
Yeah,
management
and
side.
the tools are helpful, but it always requires a person, whether
Yeah.
there's an in-house person or an agency person. They'll give you the information, but usually you have to spend a good amount of time. Like Bright Edge, you need a person that's dedicated to using that tool to be able to fully get what you're putting in or get out of it what it has to offer. So, yeah.
Do we have any
definitely.
other questions related on that? Okay, yes?
There's a company that released Nacho Analytics to a big splash in August. That seems to be true.
The question about Nacho Analytics being, I don't know anything about that one. Do you know anything about Nacho Analytics?
What was the second part?
Nacho Analytics, they proposed that you can use Google Analytics to get data on your competitor.
So is Nacho trying to get, is that what they're trying to do, get competitor data from Google?
Exactly.
Okay.
The pitch is that you can get Google Analytic data in the Google Analytics tool on any website.
That I don't know about. I don't know how they would go about doing that, because that'd be a privacy issue. You would have to connect into somebody else's website. But SpyFru does it on the outside is a
There's
much higher
definitely ways
level.
you can figure it out from the outside. So
So I'm
Google's
sure that's how they're doing it.
Yeah.
Not actually
Yeah.
Google is probably
How accurate is
recognizing
that
that
data?
competitors are offering that, so I wouldn't doubt that they will eventually add something like that into their tool as well.
A competitive analysis is very important. I mean, you bring up a very good point there, because they're ranking somebody in front of you probably for a reason, or sometimes it doesn't have a really good reason, but you're still ranked in front of you. And you have to kind of know what they're doing and what you're not doing, or what's on their site that's not on your site. So those tools can be very helpful in looking at that competition. It's not always just doing your own thing. Also look at what the competition is doing, because if Google's ranking them, you can pick up some of those things. It's not going to be perfect, but there's a lot of things you can pick up from them and try to get ahead of at least your competition, if not the ones that are in front of you. Good questions today. This is a good group. All right, what do you got?
If you don't have someone that's specialized in SEO in-house and you have to look at outsourcing it to an agency or to a website vendor, what is a realistic spend that you should be looking at, or an investment you should be making like on a monthly basis?
Okay, so the question is, if you don't have in-house people to do SEO and SEM, what's an average spend, typical spend? From where we see, small companies will spend anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month on the short end, and that's really not including paid search. It's more just organic. And as they go up towards more like paid search, social media management, the full thing, you'll see those numbers getting more to like $3,000, $4,000 from a smaller company. Larger companies will start around $3,000, $4,000 and go up to about $10,000 minimum, and then they'll get higher above that depending on what their ad spends are.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of agencies won't touch a site under a certain spend because they think then you're not going to get your results if you're not putting enough in. So it really depends on the type of website and what the initiatives are. Is it just a piece of SEO? Is it SEO with content marketing? Is it content writing? Is it video production and graphics? The big thing there is I always recommend getting a few different estimates, understanding what people offer.
Statistically speaking, from last year into the surveys we did into this, following up in today, 65% of those respondents are going to spend more money on marketing this next year. The rest are going to keep it the way it was. About 35% are going to keep it where it was. They're not going to do anything different. So if your marketing's working for you and you're getting a good return on it and you're happy with that, that's great. If you're not, might want to think about upspending and putting a little bit more spend in there, because as the competition comes into the fold, you're going to have to compete with that. And we don't compete with your competition. We're getting you to compete with the competition. So we don't control the cost from Google. Don't get mad at the agencies if you don't like the cost. That's what the market's driving. You're not going to have to respond to the market if that's where you want to play. And because that's really the best place to be this day, you really have to pick the agency carefully. Just like if you were having someone build your home or work on your car or cook you a meal. You want to make sure that it's done right and it's not just done, really cheap. The cheap stuff doesn't work. We've seen a lot of those people come to us and they're not happy. They spent 2 years doing it the cheap way and they weren't getting results. They spent the money and now they're 2 years behind the competition. So consider that into your factoring, you know, look for experience. What have they done? How long have the customers been with them? Make sure that there's a good track record there, because if people aren't happy, they leave. And we've been really fortunate to keep people happy. So here's a good choice for us. Call American Eagle. We're happy to help you with that. Yeah. Anything else?
We're just glad the Cubs weren't playing during this presentation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Looks like we got lunch coming up here real soon, guys. Any more questions? We'll be around through the day. Thanks for listening in today, and we appreciate you coming and very much like your business. So thank you for coming today.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.